Good day, everyone. 'Tis I, your resident shotgunner, Doodleman149, and today I'll be doing what I've done twice before by making a compilation video for a class of weapons in Modern Warfare. In today's video, I'll be taking a look at every shotgun we have available, and we'll be giving you either some of my favorite builds or some unique or goofy ones. Now, I know not everyone out there is good with a shotgun. To be honest, most people aren't, despite most people presuming they are skillless weapons. If they're so easy to use and are so OP, then why don't more people use them? Exactly. Running a shotgun primary is way harder than most people think. Now, when looking at this compilation of shotgun builds, you'll notice two almost universal attachments. Can you guys guess what they are based on my other shotgun build videos? That's right, it's the choke, a true shotgunner's dream attachment, and the 5mm laser. So I'll explain them both in the first build, then just glance over them in all the others. But getting back to my comments about true shotgunning not being too easy, I wanted to let you all know that some of these builds may not work for everyone. I enjoy every single one of these builds, but they aren't all super fast ADSing builds. Some require some more precision and less tack sprinting. Freaky. Despite that, if you put the time into learning these weapons, you'll see why I chose some of these builds. Now, without further delay, and without begging for subscribers, let's get into this. For my first build here, it's the OG Pump Shotty built as the Outdoorsman. The Outdoorsman is somewhere between my Boomstick and Game Warden builds. We start off in the muzzle section with the choke to significantly tighten our pellet spread and slightly increase our range at the cost of a little ADS speed. After that, I use the XRK Liberator barrel for boosted range and tighter pellet spread yet again. The 5mm laser is next used to significantly tighten our hipfire spread and to boost our sprint out speed. The Lockwood Precision Series stock is used to boost aiming stability at the cost of ADS speed. And the Lockwood Precision Series pump is used for even more stability and boosted recoil control. The Outdoorsman isn't exactly built to excel anywhere in particular. The Model 680 itself is definitely more of a close to mid-range weapon because of its impressive 12-meter one-shot kill potential. This build, similar to my other build for this gun, seeks to boost that range even further through the use of the choke and the Liberator barrel. The choke is an excellent shotgun attachment as it does the most to tighten your pellet spread without making your boomstick into a squeak twig. I refuse to suppress shotguns. The 5mm laser is great, as it is on all shotguns because it makes hip firing a lot more effective and accurate while also shortening the time it takes to go from sprinting to being able to fire. That being said, the Outdoorsman can benefit from this attachment the most. The finer wooden finishes on this build, the Lockwood stock and pump, both reduce ADS speed. With this in mind, unless you're really looking to stretch out the range of this build, hip firing is going to be the quicker and potentially more effective choice in engagements. When you do choose to ADS, however, while it will be slower, the Lockwood series of attachments make your aim more stable and reduce your recoil, making those follow-up shots easier to hit if they end up being necessary. The Outdoorsman is great for standard multiplayer. This would definitely be the build's best arena. Some areas of ground war could use this build, especially the interiors of Quarry and Port, but choosing it as a ground war primary is going to severely limit your engagement effectiveness. Warzone isn't too kind to this solid man's shotgun, and this build fares no better in that mode. If you want a very mobile but still deadly R90 build, then might I suggest the Grey Fox? While this build is very similar to my RAM build, there are some differences. We start off in the muzzle section again with the choke for that tighter pellet spread. Next we use the Forge Tack Sentry barrel to double down on the benefits of the choke. The 5mm laser is a must for shotguns as it lets you hipfire be more accurate while also increasing your sprint out speed. The F-Tac Close Quarters Pro stock is next used for an ADS speed boost, and the stippled grip tape finishes off this build to further increase our sprint out and ADS speed. Similar to the usefulness of the Outdoorsman, the Grey Fox is primarily to be used as a hipfire cannon. The very fast double barrel action of the R90 is on display here, and the choke, 5mm laser, and the extended barrel all make sure those hipfire shots are as accurate as possible. When you want to, or need to, ADS with this weapon, something you won't typically be needing to do, you'll find that the close quarter stock works well with the stippled grip tape to let you snap onto your target very quickly. Speaking of the stippled grip tape, This attachment works well in conjunction with the 5mm laser to ensure you can go from sprinting to firing as quickly as possible. The Grey Fox is built entirely for running and gunning. You should be able to hip-fire people in 2 shots from fairly absurd distances for a shotgun, as well as be able to hop around corners spamming shells into your foes. This build is probably best on small maps like Shipment, Shoot House, and Vacant, but I've had plenty of success with it on other maps as well. It's all about recognizing the weapon you're using and playing to its strengths. The Grey Fox is an excellent choice for standard multiplayer. It would work as an overkill secondary if you're of that ilk in Ground War, and despite the Street Sweeper and Spaz taking center stage, this build will work as a non-stealthy close quarters monster in Warzone. If you're looking for a futuristic looking 725 build, then the Terminator is for you. Unlike my Bear build, this build is slightly more versatile while retaining the weapon's impressive range. We start off again with my favorite shotgun attachment, the Choke, to tighten our pellet spread by quite a bit. Next, the 5mm laser makes an appearance for that boosted hipfire accuracy and sprint out speed. The Solo Zero Optics Mini Reflex Sight is used next for better target acquisition and accuracy. Sleight of hand is necessary for this weapon, as reloads will be frequent, so they might as well be fast too. And the Forge Tac Commander Guard is last up to give us that cool Terminator style while also improving our overall recoil control. Now, before we continue, I'll be back right after a word from our sponsor, Raid Shithole Legends. Nah, I'm just kidding, cause that would imply I'm actually making money on here. Anywho, my Terminator build looks appropriately futuristic while still retaining the cool factor of a double barrel shotgun. As soon as I noticed I had the Judgment blueprint from somewhere, I honestly don't recall where I got this from, I knew I had to make a kick-ass build with this skin. The Choke is just a staple at this point, along with the 5mm laser, but this is the only build where I feel like the laser adds something to the weapon's aesthetic. Using a reflex sight not only makes this build more accurate by allowing for better aiming, it also adds to the weapon's overall look. The most eye-catching attachment has to be the guard for this weapon. The Judgment Commander Guard just looks so rugged, metallic, and futuristic, it barely looks like a shotgun with this attachment. It definitely looks like something out of James Cameron's future universe. You know, when the franchise was still good. The Terminator is great in standard multiplayer, if you know how to 725 properly. You could force shotgun engagements in Ground War, where the Terminator would still be effective, but it's not this weapon's ideal area. And despite the impressive power of the 725, the small ammo capacity is really what holds this weapon back in Warzone. While I made the Spammer as my singular Origin 12 build a while ago, I felt that this build, the Sci-Fi, is just overall better. We start off with our usual 2 attachments, the Choke for tighter pellet spread and the 5mm laser for tightening hipfire spread and boosted sprint out speed. The Forge Tac Ultralight stock is a new attachment I've not used before, and it boosts the weapon's ADS strafe speed while costing us stability. Frangible Disabling is the demonic perk I've chosen for this build to add a stun effect to our enemies whenever we hit them in the legs. And this build is finished off by using the 12-round magazines for even more spam power. Keeping with the trend of high-tech looking weapons, we have here the Sci-Fi. I had thought that the only build for the Origin 12 was the Spammer, but I was incorrect. The Sci-Fi is just more mobile than the Spammer while also being more unpleasant. The Choke and 5mm laser do what they always do, and the 12-round magazine isn't anything new with my Origin 12 builds, but there are 2 notable changes. For one, there is no extended barrel attachment to slow us down. On top of that, the ultralight barrel offers greatly improved ADS strafe speed, meaning you can be more mobile while splattering enemies with buckshot. If they have a harder time hitting you, then you're more likely to win the gunfight. Speaking of which, the use of Frangible Disabling doubles down on this by briefly stunning your enemy whenever you hit them in the legs. Given this weapon still has fairly high pellet spread, even with the Choke, this shouldn't be a problem. The stun effect has the double whammy of hindering movement while also shaking their screen, making it that much harder to return fire. Keep in mind, unlike my other shotgun builds so far, this weapon is only effective up close. Even medium range fights will be a struggle. My Sci-Fi build works best in standard multiplayer. It's a fine, scuzzy choice for an overkill secondary in Ground War, and it will murder people up close in Warzone. For the second fastest VLK Rogue build available, I've come up with the Grave Filler. Varying greatly from my Firestarter build, we start off with our favorite attachment, the Choke, for all the same reasons as before. The 6-inch Revolt barrel is next for a wider pellet spread and huge mobility increases at the cost of range and accuracy. The 5mm laser is again attached for the hipfire and sprint out improvements. I've removed the stock for greatly boosted mobility while costing us recoil. And the slug rounds finish off this build by greatly increasing our one-shot kill range and our range in general at the cost of a higher skill requirement. Normally, I couldn't think of anything that would top my Firestarter build for my favorite shotgun in this game. Now, after a long time trying to find something better, I can confidently say that there isn't anything better. So instead of going for an optimized build, I went with the second fastest build I could come up with to see how effective it actually is as a primary weapon. Behold, the Grave Filler. This build is made almost entirely for speed. The short barrel, the stock removal, the 5mm laser, all of these improve our mobility in some way. The short barrel and no stock make us a lot less accurate, however, so I figured, what better way to challenge myself with my favorite build than to also throw some slug rounds on here. With these, our range isn't so much of an issue anymore. It's more the recoil and general inaccuracy caused by the short barrel. Up close, with our greatly reduced hipfire spread, you should be able to fairly accurately land those slug rounds on your opponents much as you would with regular buckshot. If you want to take full advantage of the slugs, you'll need to ADS and try your best to hit those upper torso shots. This build is best for standard multiplayer. It has a good balance between range and speed for those smaller maps. This build will suffer in Ground War as a primary, but could be a weird overkill secondary. For Warzone, I'd much rather stick to my Firestarter than this, so I suggest you do the same. Now for the funkiest of all my builds by far, the Grenadier. This Jack 12 build is nothing like my Fungus build. This build requires far more precision and isn't really forgiving in the slightest. We start off in the barrel section by using the ZLR J3600 Torrent barrel for boosted damage range and accuracy at the cost of mobility. The TAC laser is next used to boost our ADS speed since this build actually requires that. The Solo Zero Optics Mini Reflex Sight is next for precise aiming. The 8-round frag magazines are next for cancerous explosive spam. And the Merc foregrip rounds this build off to help fight this weapon's awful recoil as well as tighten our hipfire spread. This build, I'm going to admit to you right up front, is not very good. I'm not going to try and say that's a high skill build or that you need to be a shotgun pro to use it, it's just flat out not that great. The first match I used this on was Broadcast, my least favorite match, and I went extremely negative, somewhere around a 0.4 KD. Once I had gotten more used to using it, I was able to do better, but it was mostly just barely breaking even. So why run this build? Mostly for variety. It's a blast, pun intended, on shipment and shoot house. If you need assist challenges, then the Grenadier is the build for you. The frag rounds on this weapon have hugely inconsistent damage. If you direct impact someone with these, it's a death sentence. However, if you explode the round right next to them, they barely take any damage. It's pretty ridiculous the damage drop off these rounds have. I tried my best to fight the Jack 12 high recoil using the long barrel and the Merc foregrip, but this gun just isn't meant for accurate full auto firing. If you can manage it, try to fire single shots when using this build at medium range. Don't spam it because you won't hit anything. Spam only when up close and the chance of hitting your targets is higher. If you don't like this build, I don't really blame you, but I wanted to find unique builds that are still partially functional, much like my Grave Filler build from before. This build is passable in standard multiplayer. If you use this in Ground War or Warzone, best of luck to you, cause you're gonna need it. And that, folks, will do it for my relatively shorter weapon compilation video. There aren't as many shotguns as there are assault rifles or submachine guns, so this was a better video size in my opinion. What did you guys think of these builds? Did you like any of them? I'm a shotgun lover myself, so some of these may only be to my liking, but I completely understand if Grave Filler or the Grenadier weren't to your liking. Admittedly, I did build some of these variants strictly to stick to a certain aesthetic, and I think they make for very attractive builds to use. Aside from the last one, I also feel all these builds are very functional in their own right. I'd love to hear from all of you about these builds, so don't be afraid to let your voice be heard down below in the comments. I'm going to give you my top 3 favorites from this list. First off, I really like the look and overall usability of the Outdoorsman. I like the flow of using the Model 680 in general. It feels like a proper shotgun because that's exactly what it is. The wooden accents on this variant, built off the big red blueprint you earned from completing a challenge list, look very nice and lend themselves well to the weapon's title. My second favorite is the Terminator. In my previous 725 builds, I stuck to looks that lent themselves to old school double barrel shotguns. This time around, I went in the opposite direction with the futuristic look and name. The sight, laser, and guard all make this weapon extremely effective at every shotgun range. There's also nothing on here to slow down the build in terms of movement speed, so it remains as fast as it ever was. My third favorite may surprise you all. It's sci-fi. The Origin 12 is a shameful weapon to use. I understand and accept those terms of service. But there's just something about the blueprint style, the speediness of the build, and the obvious spammability that all make for a deadly weapon. This disabling perk will also strike fear into your enemies as soon as they very quickly realize they're doomed whenever they see that stun effect on their screen. And so now that I've blabbed at you all enough, I'm gonna head out. I hope you all enjoyed this compilation gun workshop. I hope you all learned something new about some cool builds to maybe try, and I hope you're all having a great day. If you liked anything you saw today, feel free to like the video, and if you're interested in more Modern Warfare content, then you can click on the video suggested at the end, or subscribe for all the new content coming up. I thank you all for your time, you've all been awesome, and I really appreciate every single one of you. I've been your host, Doodleman149. I look forward to seeing you all next time, and I will see you later.